Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. If you like all things true crime, if you like it delivered in a peaceful, tranquil manner, if you like it clear and concise without drama, then I highly recommend you subscribe. And if you like what you hear, please smash the like button. It's a free way you can help. And now, without further ado, let's dig in. Today I'm going to talk about a newly released video interview with Madeline Soto's mother, Jenn. The interview took place on March 1st of 2024. Let me situate that for you in the timeline. So Maddie went missing on Monday, February 26th. March 1st is Friday of that week. The interview took place at the police station. There were two detectives in the room with Jenn. Now, at the exact hour of this interview, Madeline's body had not yet been found. Jenn's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Stephan Sterns, had been arrested on February 28th, which was Wednesday of that same week. So if we assume that Jenn Soto did not know about Sterns' essay of her daughter, she had at this point learned about all the images and videos that the police found on his phone of him with Maddie. And because of that, Jenn Soto's attitude towards Stephan is different in this interview. There are moments where she expresses anger. Another thing I need to let you know about is that there are sections in the video that are redacted, so we don't get to hear what is being said. So if you hear a pause, if you hear silence, that is a redacted section. Now, I'm not going to play you all 3 hours of this interview, which I watched, by the way, on Grizzly True Crime. I believe she is the one who paid to get access to this video. I'm giving her credit right now. I don't want no problems with nobody accusing me of not giving them credit. I'm just going to share snippets that I believe are the most telling, most interesting, and that way I can save you a lot of time. What's very interesting is that we now have a window into what was going on behind closed doors on Monday, February 26th, the day that Maddie was reported missing. We haven't really heard until now what Jenn Soto and Stephan Sterns were up to on the evening of February 26th, after the police did their initial interviews and left. Jenn and Stephan found themselves without Maddie, obviously, that evening at Jenn's townhouse. Now, for some reason, I'd imagined that the two of them had spent the night together, likely hanging out in Jenn's bedroom. In my mind, Jenn would have needed comfort and support from Stephan that night, especially if she truly did not know what Stephan had done to Maddie. It never occurred to me that Jenn would have ended up alone in her bedroom and Stephan would head upstairs alone to bedroom number 4, where he allegedly took Maddie's life mere hours before. But per Jenn, this is exactly what happened. Now, earlier on Monday, when Jenn found out Maddie didn't arrive at school, after she contacted the police, she drove herself home in her white Nissan Sentra. Jenn told the detectives that during that drive home, she, quote, ugly cried all the way. Now, I'm leaning toward believing Jenn at this point that she didn't know that Stephan had done Maddie in that morning. I say this because of the actions she says she took after discovering that Maddie hadn't been to school all day. Immediately, Jenn called a police officer she knows for advice. She also contacted the local news channels. Stephan, on the other hand, went to sleep. He knocked himself out. He was acting as if it was all too much for him when he should have been trying to comfort Jenn. Later, Stephan told her he wanted to go out cruising to look for Maddie, and he ends up taking her car without asking her permission. And this is when he secretly visited the dump site. He went back to visit Maddie, a deceased Maddie. When Jenn later asked him where he drove, Stephan replied, "I went to Highway 192. And Jenn was like, why there? After all, that was nowhere near Maddie's middle school. And presumably, Jenn had no idea that her daughter was dead over in a bamboo grove. Stephan told Jenn that he didn't know why he chose that area to search. By the way, I've noticed that Stephan has a tendency to sprinkle grains of truth in his lies. I feel like he enjoys playing this game. To him, it's like wordplay. It's just something I've noticed. He thinks he's smarter than everybody in the room. Back to Monday evening. Now, a lot of us were outraged when we heard that Jenn and Stephan didn't go out and search for Maddie Monday night. But in this interview, Jenn explains that she was getting a lot of phone calls from people wanting to help and offering suggestions. So she made her lack of searching seem a little bit more palatable. When a TV crew showed up for an interview with Jenn, Stephan woke up and came down. Here's what Jenn told the detectives about those moments.
In front of the camera and did an interview where he cried.
Do you know which news outlet that was with? I know there's a video on Fox 35
with him sitting
to be on like a webcam.
Yeah, that was Zoom. He was sitting in the background for me.
Okay.
I know
but
that
you had
one.
In-person interviews with reporters?
Yes. I want to say it was Channel 9.
Okay.
Yeah, Channel 9.
And he spoke to them?
Yes.
Okay.
And he ugly cried in front of the camera too, so he was big sob crying.
Are you saying that now, or do you...
I'm saying that now. I didn't think that at the time. At the time, I thought he was truly heartbroken and... Not that he had done all this shit. Like, I look back at shit now and just like, he was faking. What else has he been lying to me about? I know he's like a master liar manipulator because he's done it to his parents, and he's told me and shown me the lies he's done to his parents. But I don't know why I never thought, not me.
The lies are about money, they're about where he's at, what he's doing. Like, what's he...
Yeah, all that.
To his parents?
Yeah, he's stolen money from his parents. They used to have a few $1,000s hidden in like a closet for emergency fund kind of thing. And during COVID, he stole, like, he wanted RC cars. See, if he wants something, he's gonna get it. No matter what. So, he wanted RC vehicles. They were remote control cars. Fancy ones. They were a few $100s. And I'm poor. I know I can't afford it. And he's showing up at home with these things. And I asked him, where are you getting the money from? Because we don't have this money. He goes, oh, my dad. And I said, your dad gave you money? He goes, no, I took some from his closet. And I was like they have an emergency stash? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, he's gonna notice money's missing. And he's like, no, he won't. It's so much money in there, he won't notice at all. I've confirmed with Chris later on that he did notice money, but he never asked his son. But I let him know, yeah, he was wrong.
I found that really interesting, that Jenn thought that Stephan confiding the lies that he told his parents to her meant that he wasn't lying to her. And now she knows that he lied to her as well. And it also shows the dynamic between Stephan and his father, at least, that the father didn't call him out for stealing from him, didn't hold Stephan accountable. Stephan's been playing his parents like a fiddle throughout his life. When Jenn woke up on the morning of Tuesday, February 27th, Stephan was still asleep in room number 4 upstairs. Jenn began making phone calls, trying to spread the word. For example, she called the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Meanwhile, Stephan medicated himself and kept on sleeping. He couldn't be bothered to even try and pretend to be a caring, supportive friend to Jenn in her hour of need. Again, this makes me think that Jenn maybe really did not know that Stephan had done away with Maddie. She might have known about the SA and the grooming, but I don't think that she ever thought he was capable of taking a life. Jenn said that she also asked her friends and family to call news outlets. If she didn't have family and was dependent on Stephan, she would have been doing all of this alone. And it seems like she didn't even have the expectation that this guy, who was supposedly her best friend, should show up right now and help her. Honestly, I feel this video of Jenn makes it more understandable why the police haven't charged Jenn in connection with her daughter's death. Now, maybe later they will charge her with child neglect, possibly with conspiracy to commit SA, I don't know. But in terms of actually Maddie's death, I think we can see why they haven't charged her in connection with that. Jenn also sent her sister to Amtrak and Greyhound to spread the news about Maddie's disappearance, just in case somebody had grabbed her. Now, as you may know, on Tuesday night, so the day after Maddie was reported missing, the cops kicked everybody out of Jenn's townhouse so that forensics could go in there and do their job. So they were already on to Stephan, and this is when Stephan called his father, Chris, asking him to drive the 2.5 hours from Northport, Florida, where the family live, to Orlando to help them get a hotel. Stephan and Jenn just didn't have the money. And even in these dire circumstances with her daughter missing, Jenn said that her mother, Yolanda, would not have let them stay in her house because she disliked Stephan. Chris Sterns has said that he arrived in Orlando at around 2:30 a.m., and that's when he, Jenn, and Stephan checked into the hotel. But now, during this interview on March 1st with Jenn Soto, the detectives then circled back to what happened earlier on Tuesday. And this is what she said happened when the cops asked Stephan for his cell phone, the notorious cell phone that contained all those images of Maddie.
Or if they would need a warrant. And I remember him saying, should I have asked a warrant? Should I have? And I'm like, no, if you've got nothing to hide, give them your fucking phone. And I think we hung out in the house for a little bit, and then when you guys came in the evening and you guys told us to wait outside and we waited in my car, he started getting very anxious and very panicky, going, I want my phone back. I want my phone back. And I said, listen, at this point, it's their phone. It's theirs. I don't give a shit. We will buy you a new phone. It doesn't matter anymore. Whatever they need, they need. Like, let them look at it. And he's like, I just want my phone back. And I'm just like, are you trying to make yourself more suspicious? Because, like, if you were to go demand your phone back right now, that would look suspicious as like, what are you doing? I'm thinking he's just getting impatient because he's bored and wants to play on his phone. And at one point, he takes my phone to start playing with it. I give it up, and I said, here, play on my phone. Have fun. Because I think from my phone, he was trying to log into his emails, but he couldn't. Because you need like 2-factor authentication from your own phone. And I'm just like, what are you trying to look at? And he's like, oh, my shipments, my packages. He's addicted to buying shit. That's another thing. Me and his dad couldn't figure out where Stephan was getting money from to buy stuff since he's been unemployed the last 2 months, but he's constantly buying himself packages, buying himself things off of Amazon, buying himself things off the line.
Is this stuff you can confirm, or you think he's doing this?
What?
Buying packages.
I can confirm because I am linked to his Amazon account, and his parents can confirm whatever UPS packages or whatever he's getting at home. But I'm linked to his Amazon account. If you guys have my phone, you'll see whatever shipment. I think most recently I did like birthday party. If you see birthday party stuff, that was me. But everything else, him.
So Jen's spending her money on birthday supplies while Stephan is buying himself all sorts of stuff. And it sounds like she was okay with all this. She was tolerating this selfish person. I also found it interesting that she handed over her phone to him so he could play with the phone, almost like he's a child. But of course he was trying to get to his emails to probably delete stuff. And Jenn was smart enough to realize that the cops wanting Stephan's phone, not hers, the cops wanting access to the townhouse, all of this meant that they were looking at Stephan Sterns. But she had to point that out to him. It doesn't sound like he was putting two and two together. He was just frantic trying to get those images off his phone. And this is when Jenn decided that Chris needed to get Stephan a lawyer. So during the interview, Jenn tells the detectives that she said this to Stephan: they know something. And this statement does make it sound like maybe Jenn did know about some of Stephan's criminal acts with her daughter. Now listen to what Jenn tells the detectives about the night she, Stephan, and Chris spent in the hotel.
Getting ready for bed, or laying down in bed probably around 3:30, 3:45 in the morning. And I fell asleep. Stephan was already asleep at this point.
Did you go straight to sleep when you got in, or just kind of drifted off as you were falling asleep? Like you went to the bathroom and you go straight to bed?
He was already in bed before I went to the bathroom.
Okay.
I was on my phone for a little bit. He was laying in bed snoozing. I went to use the restroom. I was in the restroom for quite a while because I had a terrible cell. When I came back out, he was asleep. At least I thought he was asleep. But,
His dad stayed with you guys?
not in the hotel room. He stayed in a different room on the same floor.
Okay.
The following morning, I wake up, I think around 9 o'clock in the morning. And Stephan's not there. And I remember thinking, he left again without his phone and didn't tell anyone where he was going. That's suspicious as why is he trying to?
Well, we took his phone, so he got a new phone?
He didn't get the new phone until later that day, where his dad woke up, came to our hotel room, and then handed him a phone.
Okay.
And said, here, have this phone in the meantime until you get your old phone back.
So what she's describing there is when Stephan secretly drove to Northport, Florida, 2.5 hours away to where his parents live. He lied about this to Jenn. He didn't cop to it. He lied about it to his father. He didn't admit to him that he drove all the way to Northport. His father, Chris, thinks that he drove there to get a hold of some weapons that he had, but I don't think any of us in the public know really what exactly Stephan was doing down there. Obviously, it had something to do with evidence that he wanted to get rid of. And he made this drive in the early morning hours of Wednesday. So he had to be exhausted by this point, although he did sleep during the day on Tuesday. But still, it is unbelievable that he was able to make a 5-hour trip and not crash the car from falling asleep. But I suspect he probably took something, and also he might have been operating on adrenaline. Dude knows he's going to prison if they find those images, so he's frantic to avoid getting arrested and caught. You could probably move a huge boulder under those circumstances, you know what I mean? Despite Jenn knowing that the cops were looking at Stephan as a potential perpetrator, she thought they were wasting their time. So Jenn keeps making it seem like she had no clue that Stephan had SA'd Maddie and then done her in. Now, when Stephan showed back up at the hotel on Wednesday morning, Jenn was like, "What are you doing? If the cops came and you weren't here, you would be like a fugitive." It's a very interesting word choice for Jenn to make. Sort of seems suspicious. Jenn said that Stephan went to bed after this. Later, Jenn had lunch with his father, Chris, in the hotel, and they brought some food back to the room for Stephan. and Jenn told the cops that he only ate about 2 bites. And at the time, she was feeling sorry for him. And it was later on this day, Wednesday, February 28th, that Stephan was arrested and charged with all those counts thanks to the images of him and Maddie on his cell phone. So yeah, he wasn't going to get his cell phone back. After that, Jenn went to her sister's house, and that's where she stayed. Now, at this point in the interview with Jenn, she tells the police that she found it uncomfortable when strangers were coming up to her in public to say that they were sorry. She said she found it so heavy. Now, this next part of the interview is very interesting. Unfortunately, there's a lot of it that's redacted, so when you hear silence, those are the redacted sections. So you'll hear Jenn talk about Maddie confiding to Stephan that she had a crush on a boy, and that this was confided a week before Maddie died. So this is definitely a potential motive for the crime. According to Jenn, Stephan acted like he thought it was cute, but again, he's a pathological liar. And it's also in this part of the interview that the detectives start sort of confronting Jenn and saying, "You didn't think that this was weird that Stephan and Maddie were sleeping in the same bed? Help us understand that." The detectives suspect that maybe Jenn was aware of the SA. So for this part, I'm going to try to cut out the redacted sections because they're pretty long and it's annoying. So if the conversation seems to jump to a new topic, you'll understand why.
Was that something out of convenience for him? Because you...
A little bit of both. We missed him. And I wanted to help him out, like make it easy, like give him a place, like a base to start at, and then for him to start looking for something else afterwards on his own. But yeah.
You obviously relationship talk a lot. Is she a secretive teenager? What is like your kind of day to day with her?
A normal relationship. I asked, she would tell me. I didn't think she was hiding anything from me. I didn't think she was lying to me about anything, but obviously she had secrets.
I mean, hindsight, all the stuff you found out over the past couple of days, we're like taking that out of the picture, your relationship with her.
Okay.
Like not looking back saying, okay, I was being lied to. Like up until you found out some things that you've been told. You guys had an open communication relationship. You talk about
everything.
Life.
Yeah. If anything, she was a little bit more open with Stephan because she told him about a boy she had a crush on.
Okay.
And that his name was. And she described him. And Stephan's like, "Are you aware that she has a crush on a boy?" I said, "No." He's like, "Yeah." She told me his name, that he's tall and that she likes his fluffy hair.
When was this? Do you remember when this conversation happened?
Within the last week sometime, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Like so we saw, so within a week of that Sunday. I'm not sure if she had told him via phone chat. It must have been via phone, like phone cover, like we don't FaceTime, we Google Meet.
The Android
version of FaceTime, yeah. So we would Google Meet often. Sometimes when we get home from school, just talk all day. Or sometimes not even talk all day. We would just bullshit. I would be doing my own thing. He would be doing. We're just keeping each other company on the phone. And I think in one of those conversations, she told him that she had a crush on a boy. But I checked those text messages with that boy, and nothing seemed in here either. So.
How did he? It could be new. She sees a guy at school. She thinks it's attractive. He shows her attention. She's young. How did he take it? Was he like? And I want you to think back before you know things you know now. Like, did he seem concerned about her? Did he seem excited for her? Like she's starting to be a kid and have crushes and everything else. Like,
he seemed happy for her.
Okay.
He's like, "Yeah, did you hear this? This is super cute." And I was like, "Oh." She hadn't told me. And I wondered, I'm like, why didn't she tell me? Why did she tell him and not me? And like, I want to know who she got a crush on. It's because I told her she had a rule. She wasn't allowed to date for a few years. Until like, I think I had said 16 or something like that. But I didn't want her dating.
So then your relationship with her was open. Obviously, she's a child. She's not going to share everything.
Yeah.
With him, it seems like she has a very open relationship with him. They talk, they hang out.
I think Maddie confiding to Stephan is a testament to how well he groomed her over the years. They had their secrets together. He was a confidant. She could tell him things that she knew he wouldn't share with her mother. And Jenn had told Maddie that you can't date until you're 16. So perhaps Maddie didn't want to tell Jenn, hey, I've got a crush on a guy at school. And you can tell the detectives are already thinking this crush on a guy at school could be motive for Stephan Sterns getting rid of Maddie or punishing her, or maybe in his sick mind thinking nobody else is going to have you. And if I do Maddie in, then she's mine forever. The detectives then want to know about Jenn and Stephan. When did they meet? What happened in terms of dating? Jenn said that she and Stephan met at a job, and she said they were best friends for a year before dating. And Jenn was the one who asked Stephan if he wanted to hook up, and he was like, yeah. By 2018, they were hooking up, and Stephan was living with his parents, and then he started staying at Jenn's place. Jenn described Stephan as a hoarder and messy. That was one of the reasons she sent him to stay upstairs in her townhome in room number 4. She didn't like the mess that he left in his wake. And note that both of his parents, Debbie and Chris, they both described his bedroom at their home as a pigsty. So again, he seems like a man-child. I mean, he's got to have people telling him, Stephan, it's time to clean your room. To me, it seems like this is a case of arrested development. He never matured into a grown-up man. But if you look at photos of her bedroom, it looks fairly cluttered and disorganized. I'd hate to see what Jenn's room looked like when Stephan was staying in it. By the way, she also said that when they slept, Maddie would sleep in the middle between the two of them. Jenn would wear her street clothes a lot of the time to bed. Maddie would wear shorts and a baggy t-shirt. And Stephan would either wear his pants, his dirty pants, or he would sleep in his boxers. And Jenn said that Maddie would sometimes sleep in the crook of his arm. Jenn also said that Madeline sleeping with Stephan alone in room number 4 started in June the year before. Madeline and Stephan would say, we want to have a slumber party upstairs and watch a movie. And Jenn made it sound like she wasn't thrilled about it, but she let it go because it seemed sort of innocent. And Jenn felt that she was really paying attention. She said that she was home most of the time because she was living off of disability. She wasn't working, so they were all there together much of the time. But again, they would have these, they meaning Maddie and Stephan, would have these slumber parties upstairs without Jenn. And it sounds like maybe Jenn looked at this as Stephan babysitting Maddie, maybe giving Jenn some time to take a nap or do something else. Often maybe it was a movie that Jenn didn't want to watch. It almost sounds to me like the two kids in the family, Madeline and Stephan, would go off to play up in room number 4. The detectives then asked Jenn, where did Madeline sleep when Stephan wasn't with you at the townhome? And she said, with me. Jenn said in this interview on March 1st that her roommates, the female roommates, would often get up early for work, and she didn't want them waking Madeline up because, again, Madeline's bedroom was in the living room, and it was just sort of partitioned off. So that was a new reason out of Jenn's mouth for having Madeline sleep with her. I think we heard in another interview that Madeline said that she didn't want to sleep in there because it was dark and there were spiders. At some point during this interview on March 1st, the detectives tell Jenn that they have around 200 people out looking around for Madeline, and they emphasize that these people were giving up time with their families to work around the clock. And they said that Madeline was at the top of the priority list. I think that they were wondering if Jenn knew where Maddie's body was, and they were trying to lay it on her and say, like, if you know something about where she is, now's the time to tell us. And Jenn was kind of crying and saying, if I knew, I would tell you. I really don't know. And this is when one of the detectives tells Jenn that they are treating the case as a homicide. And now you'd think she already would know this because they'd shown her the photos of Maddie in Stephan's car where she was not alive. But maybe Jenn was clinging on to magical thinking and hoping that Maddie was really alive in the car. You know, she's in denial, and she's saying, until you actually show me a body, I don't believe it. And the cops ask her, you know, you said in one of your first interviews that you saw Maddie getting dressed on Monday at 8 a.m. And obviously we know that that was impossible because Maddie was already deceased. Well, Jenn tries to explain this by saying that she assumed she saw Maddie getting dressed on Monday, and that's why she said that. In my humble opinion, I believe that Stephan Sterns came up with a narrative after Jenn told him that Maddie was missing. I think he knew once she contacted the police that they were going to be knocking on her door, and he wanted her to sort of support his version of events. I think he needed her to say that maybe they both went and dropped Maddie off. He was hoping that if she said that, that could sort of be like his alibi, that Jenn was with him and both of them dropped Maddie off. Remember, Jenn said in her initial interviews, we dropped Maddie off. I think the 8 a.m. seeing Maddie get dressed was part of Stephan's narrative as well, to try and trick the police into believing that Maddie was alive on Monday morning. And so whatever befell her after they dropped Maddie off was caused by somebody else. And I think Jenn is still lying. I think she doesn't want to admit that she went along with Stephan's narrative on Monday, either to continue to protect him or to try and protect herself. I'm pretty sure she doesn't want to go to jail for lying to the police and trying to cover things up. You know, it's important to note that she was in this March 1st interview all by herself. She did not have a lawyer by her side advising her. And the detectives really laid into Jenn. They said that they found it nuts that she was more concerned about Stephan being falsely accused for this crime than making Maddie a priority. While Madeline was still missing out there somewhere, Jenn's advising Stephan to get a lawyer. So why did Jenn prioritize Stephan over Maddie? The detective said, "You're offering Stephan a lawyer. It makes you look like you may be involved." And Jenn didn't really have a good excuse for this. It's sort of like, well, he's my best friend, so I'm watching out for him, instead of, hey, that's my daughter. If you did something to her, then I hope they put you in prison and they throw away the key. But she's telling the cops, I was convinced he hadn't done anything at all to hurt Madeline. It's like Jenn blindly believed Stephan. He had her so convinced that he was a trustworthy friend. Or Jenn is lying. This next snippet from the March 1st interview is very interesting because it's when the detectives ask Jenn about the images on Stephan's phone and if there could possibly be anything like that anywhere. Does she know about it?
So up until this morning, you still think that it's not?
No.
You're talking about the other day?
Up until
When we took him?
yes.
Okay.
I forgot what day of the week that was.
So we're still going through his phone, his drive, like I told you, all his socials. We can date back to 2020. Based on the videos, it appears that was the start of the victimization. Okay, are we going to find anything in his phone with you?
No. I haven't done anything. We've never done anything.
Has there ever been a request for the two of you to participate in activity with him?
No.
Regardless of you saying no or yes?
No. He's never asked that.
Okay. If we find pictures like that, is that going to surprise you? I have in his Google Drive, if I have a science detective, a computer person look at his phone, and they tell me, hey Kevin, I found a picture engaged in activity or borderline activity, is that going to surprise you?
Yes, because that doesn't exist.
Okay. At any time during the course of your relationship, has he expressed that he has ever had sex with a child?
No. Not a child, but when he told me when he was in high school, he graduated high school like later, like older than 18.
Okay.
He dated somebody younger than 18. I think she was 15. But I don't know how old he was, 19, 20. But he was an older kid in high school. He graduated late. But he had a really young girlfriend. Her name was Kendall. And I thought...
So that's very interesting. You've got Stephan in high school as an older kid dating a much younger girl there. Could this be where his interest in little girls, little children, could this be where that was born? I'm thinking he was probably in high school at an older age because of the head injury that he sustained. The detectives asked Jenn if she'd ever gone through Stephan's phone, and unfortunately that answer was redacted. Then the cops asked Jenn if over the last 48 hours since Stephan was arrested, has she thought of where he might have dumped Maddie? And they asked Jenn to give them her top 5 possible locations. Here's what she says.
You think, it doesn't have to be based on evidence, just in your gut, give me your top 5 places where you think he could.
In this area...
Doesn't have to be in this area.
No, I know.
Anywhere you want.
I'm saying, in this area, I have no idea. Orlando, Kissimmee, no idea where he could have taken her. But his trip to Northport is weird as... I feel like in Northport, he knows more people. He has more friends. There could be a place, and somewhere there he could have stashed her. You guys said he went into a storage unit. That would be another place to look. But there's plenty of woods around his house. Around that exit is kind of secluded. Like,
When you say his house, you mean his parents' house?
his parents' house, yeah.
You've been there? Have you seen the property?
Yeah, I've been there before.
Do they have land? Or is it in like a neighborhood?
So, it's not a neighborhood because they don't have HOA. You just buy the plot of land and build it. They don't have many neighbors.
Okay.
Or last I saw, I think there was a neighbor building right next door, but I don't know if they're done yet.
What strikes me about this part of the interview is how calm Jenn is when talking about possible locations where Stephan may have stashed her daughter's body. There are no tears. She's just calm as can be. Now, in this next part of the interview, the detectives really go after Jenn. And I want to give you a trigger warning because some of the stuff they talk about is very graphic. I've tried to mute out some of that, but you're going to know what they're talking about.
That's the only places I could think that, like, he may have gone, because that's where I know I've gone with him before. But anywhere else, I have no idea.
So our ERT team, it's called Emergency Response Team, it's just a group of people who search areas. Doesn't have to be wooded, can be wooded, can be swampy. They've been out for 3 days. They're going to be out all weekend. They will eventually, whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's in 2026, okay? I don't think you want that to take too long. I'm sure you'd like to have a funeral. I'm sure you'd like to have some kind of memorial service. The last thing you want is for us to call you in a year and say, hey, we found remains. We don't know. Okay? That may not be something you thought about till just now, but I can tell you, being someone who investigates homicide, that is something that everybody has to come think about eventually. If you can think of anything that would assist us in making that happen to you today, versus 2 years from now, regardless of why you know or how you know, we need it.
No, I know. If I knew anything, I would tell you right now. I promise. I want her back so bad. I don't want to think about planning a funeral.
What has your communication been like with his father since this?
I've limited contact over the last 2 days because I know too much and I don't want to tell them anything.
You don't want to tell them what we've told you, or you don't want to tell them what you know?
No, I don't want to tell them what you guys have told me. I don't want to share any. It's so difficult because I've known them for just as long as I've known Stephan. They feel like absolute right now. I know that they kind of got into a fight because Chris are you sure we know our son? Are you sure we know our son? I don't think we know him at all. The mom was defending him, but now with everything, with the evidence on the phone coming out, they know he's a piece of shit.
We've talked to his dad. I mean, his dad knows as much as you know. He knows his son's He's talked to us. He's been very open with wanting to help in any way he can. Whether that's technological, whether that's verbal.
Yeah, he even had, I was with him when he turned in his knife to you guys. He remembered he had it on him and gave it to you guys. I thought that was...
Have you talked to Chris about Stephan needing a lawyer?
Yeah.
When?
I think when you guys showed me the photos.
So we showed you photos of Stephan.
No.
First thought you had was to ask his father if he should get a lawyer?
No. I saw a picture. I didn't see I didn't know she was getting until yesterday. I saw the picture of the happening. And I knew that was true, right? That's evidence. That's for real. That's happening. But I kept thinking, they're going... I don't know why I can't tell you why my brain kept thinking, no, he didn't kill her. Not that he didn't, but she's still missing. She's still out there. She was taken. Yes, he's done this to her. And that's not okay. But I swore she was still... I felt in my body she was still alive. She was still out there. I told Chris to get him a lawyer because I felt like you guys were chasing the wrong person, but you weren't. You're not.
We showed you a picture. A picture you saw. She was giving a grown-ass man, and you told his dad to get him a lawyer.
Do you get the feeling that Jenn didn't think the oral stuff was actually sex? That to her it wasn't that big of a deal? I've heard a lot of young people say that they don't actually think that that is a sex act. It really is astounding that Jenn is advising Chris to get Stephan a lawyer after she witnessed images of her daughter doing this to Stephan. So the cops were grilling her and they are pointing out this is a grown man doing this to your little girl, and you're concerned about whether he has a lawyer or not? You're You're like, yeah, he did that, but I don't think he did her in. This is the mentality that was in that household, and this is what I think led to Maddie losing her life. I don't know exactly what Jenn Soto knew, but it's clear that she was missing red flags. And the cops are like, and you just thought she was missing, and we're showing you photos of your daughter in Stephan's car, and we're telling you that we don't think she's asleep, and you're still thinking that he didn't do anything like this to her? And you'll notice in the video, Jenn does a lot of self-soothing. She's kind of rocking. It's also interesting that she explains that she did sort of ghost Stephan's parents. And Chris Sterns had mentioned this, that she had sort of gone MIA and wasn't taking his phone calls. I wonder what Jenn thinks of the Sterns now, having heard Chris Sterns try to implicate her. Does she still think he's a good guy? Is she now furious with Chris and Debbie Sterns? I mean, we heard Chris trying to find every possible reason for the police to arrest Jenn and suspect her. The cops tell Jenn whether Maddie was doing this willingly, that is not consent. She's not really agreeing to do this. She's been groomed to do this. It's like they have to point out to her how egregious it is. They tell Jenn, you prioritize Stephan by telling his father to get him a lawyer. You put Stephan over your daughter, instead of saying, hey, we need to figure out what happened to Maddie and who gives a crap about Stephan. Jenn claims she was in shock. She uses shock as an excuse, and the detective says, no, that's not shock. That is your natural instinct to protect Stephan. The cop then says to her, I don't believe a lot of the things you're saying and telling me. And the detective says, and that's because you've shown me twice now that your first reaction is to protect Stephan, prioritize Stephan over Maddie. Jenn just sits there looking pretty pathetic.
Body in his car with a seatbelt on, right? We have played it out for you. Now you're in a stage where he's in jail, you know she's passed away, and now you can feel emotion, right? Until that point, when you were shown that she was deceased, your continued first reaction is to protect this guy. You just said, I only saw a picture of him, whatever your verbiage was. I say his in her mouth, and your first reaction was, oh my, victimized? No. She's being abused? No. It's Stephan needs a lawyer. Who the fuck cares if we think he killed?
I don't know why I said that.
But that's the problem. You don't know why. So the reaction in your mind is you're continuously protecting this guy. So why do I sit here and believe that you don't? Because right now you know Stephan. You know without her body, can he be charged with murder?
I don't know.
Exactly. So you don't know what we can do. Do I think we can charge him with murder? It's not up to me. Should he be charged with murder? Yes. Does your role in her life lead this to happen? I'll be honest. Yes.
I know.
Wow. So the cop is calling her out and saying, your role as her mother led to this happening to your daughter. And she says, I know. To me, this is the most powerful interview that we've seen so far. It is unreal. It definitely shows the dysfunction in Jenn Soto's home between her, Stephan, Maddie. Why she would value Stephan so much, this man-child who's buying himself all sorts of stupid little games and toys, who's living at her house and barely contributing, who's spending time alone with her daughter watching movies like they're having a slumber party, like he's a kid. And we saw how he didn't offer her any comfort on Monday night when she didn't know where Maddie was. And she doesn't even express that she needed support from him. It's sort of like she knew, oh, poor Stephan, he's crying, he's upset. I'm going to just let him sleep and I'll handle all of this. I want to know from you guys, does this interview change your opinion of Jenn? If so, how has it changed? If not, why not? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories. Now do me a favor, this video took me a long time to make. Please smash that like button, and please consider a super thanks or a membership or a Patreon membership. Anything you can give helps. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories.